Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and today I'm going to talk about how keto is not a crash diet. It's actually the opposite of a crash diet. And there's my dog. So, keto diet is getting a lot of popularity nowadays, and I've been doing it for 7 years almost. So basically, I talk about this stuff quite a lot. Basically, all my videos are on this topic and varying different questions you might have. Basically, any question you have about keto is going to be answered on my page. But people are concerned. Is this a crash diet? Is this something that's going to just make me gain more weight after I'm done the diet? And the answer is definitively no. So this is something that seems biased for me to explain, but once I help you understand the reasoning behind it, you'll understand and won't just think that I'm boosting the keto diet. So, talk to a lot of people on a daily basis about this stuff. Their main concern is, okay, I'm not having carbs and sugar for an extended period of time. Isn't that going to make me crave it more? And the reality is actually no. The biggest thing that keeps people so enthusiastic about this lifestyle is that you don't crave carbs or sugar because you're not having them. Your blood sugar is much more stable instead of being spiked every couple hours, and as a result of keeping it stable for the most part, you are not going to have cravings for certain food items that you normally might. So typically, somebody having a sandwich for breakfast will spike their blood sugar. Somebody having an apple for breakfast, even if it's a quote-unquote more natural source of carbs, will spike their blood sugar. And by the time you're driving home for lunch, driving by Wendy's is going to look very appetizing, and you're going to start salivating. You're going to have a physiological reaction to a stimulus of the possibility of food, the possibility of more sugar. It's a physiological thing. It's not a mental thing as much as you might think that it is. So, once you remove that breakfast with the carbs, once you remove your body running on a carb metabolism, right? Once you remove your body running on a carb metabolism, there's no craving for carbs. Your body has adapted, and generally after day 3, the first 3 days are the hardest, you'll notice everything's working just fine and you're not craving these foods. As time goes on and a couple weeks pass, that's when you'll get to the point where you start looking at donuts like they're plastic, because your body just simply won't have a physiological reaction because there's no more dependence on these foods. However, this does take time, but your appetite will be much more manageable after day 3. So for people concerned about this being a crash diet, the first thing I'd like to address is that that's the reasoning as to why you won't be craving carbs on a regular basis. People who haven't tried this tend to think that it is a highly disciplinary type of lifestyle. Or people who have done it incorrectly will believe that it is a highly disciplined style of eating. But at the end of the day, it does take discipline in the beginning, but once you've set up that routine, it's literally a physiological dependence that has been removed. So it's the same thing as somebody who's a smoker and then stops smoking for 5 years, except scale that down because it only takes 3 days for your body to kick sugar. And that's the same type of response. Of course, every now and then, a smoker could be excited by the thought of smoking, or they might have a little trigger sensation for the craving that they want to fulfill. But after 10 minutes, it'll probably go away. That's about the worst that it really gets. Hopefully that example works well for a lot of people. But in general, that's just getting the primary suppositions out of the way. So you're not going to have these cravings on a regular basis. It's not like you're abstaining from something and you're just like, fighting this urge all the time. The urge isn't there. So what happens when you get ripped after this easy process of a keto diet and then you start eating carbs again? Well, at this point, you will probably start to realize that once you start eating sugar, you'll want more of it. This is because sugar is a luxury energy source in nature. It's a quick digesting emergency fuel. Meanwhile, fat is like basic logs and fire, and carbs are like pouring a bunch of gasoline in small quantities on top of the fire. So fat can still handle 90% of all the activities you're doing. And in fact, it's a much slower and steady burning energy source. But pouring some gasoline or some quick burning fuel on top of a fire will make it shine brighter for a small period of time and then burn out. And that is what carbs are for. That is why they taste sweet. That is why we have such a high dopamine mental reward response to eating them. So they are not something that's meant to be overdone. This is why our body stores plenty more fat than it does sugar. We only store few thousand calories worth of carbs in our body separate from muscle glycogen. Beyond that, and that's just in your liver, beyond that your body can store seemingly endless amounts of calories from fat. And this is because your body prefers to do 80% of the work around from fat as fuel. Your cell walls, the stuff you're taught in high school, they are made of fat and cholesterol. Your brain is made almost entirely of saturated fat. Your body prefers fat, and it's obvious in that sense because it wouldn't store so much of it if it didn't prefer to have it. It's a much more sustainable energy source. It's just that we aren't typically nowadays in 2019 eating in ways that facilitate our body to tap into this. We're eating a lot of carbs. We're keeping our body's energy is like a fire, and we're just pouring little bits of gasoline, little bits of fuel on top of it every now and then, and it burns brightly, then it goes down. Then you have to pour more sugar, have it burn brightly again, and then go down. So at the end of the day, wouldn't it just be better to just drop a couple logs on there in the morning and then smooth sailing all day? That's kind of the gist of keto. That's a good comparison for the sensation of how the diet and lifestyle feel. And it also kind of gives you an insight into how to use carbs strategically and as nature intended. So this again should give you some insight into why your body will crave more carbs when you start eating them. It's a luxury energy source, and it's more likely for your body to store fat if you eat little bits of sugar. So if you overdo the sugar, it will spike your insulin. And after you filled up all your muscle glycogen, which is one of the primary reward responses your body wants, after you fill those up, your body's going to want to store extra energy. It's quick energy. So overdoing the sugar, or overdoing anything really, but particularly sugar, because it's so high in high insulinogenic food, insulin being the fat storage hormone, what's going to happen is overdoing sugar will cause your body to burn more, or to store more fat. So why does it make you store fat? Because it's a better energy source. But in the springtime, when all the carbs are available in nature, all the fruits, all the grains, everything that is carby deliciousness is available in the summer. And it's not available in the winter because you're presumably fatter in the winter. You've built up more fat stores. You're running through those. That's how nature originally, for most tribes and most people of certain backgrounds, that's how they were operating. So what it comes to, is it a crash diet? Well, if you start eating sugar, you're going to like sugar, and you'll probably have, a day where you eat higher carb. But your insulin sensitivity will, on large scale, be better as a result of having done the keto diet in the first place. Abstaining from carbs for a long time will make your body more sensitive to carbs and insulin, and this is a good thing. Insulin sensitivity is one of the primary factors in determining if you're going to store fat. If you're more insulin sensitive, this means that your body's going to take the carbs that you eat and flush only the appropriate amounts of insulin into your muscles so that you can not store fat, but store muscle glycogen, which is carb energy. And of course, distribute nutrients properly throughout your body. But in general, high insulin sensitivity is optimal. And performing keto lifestyle for an extended period of time, at least 1 month is how long it takes for you to get adapted fully for most people, will be very beneficial to you doing the opposite of a crash diet. It'll make you less likely to store fat. It'll make you perform better when you start eating carbs. Your body actually gets better at not only using fat, but at using carbs as well as a fuel source. So doing any diet that keeps carbs in the picture can work, of course, but keeping those carbs in picture is what's going to actually be keeping you on the blood sugar loop. It's going to be keeping you craving the carbs. And this is why when people start thinking about a diet with no carbs, they look at it through the lens of any carb diet they've done in the past, because they've always felt that craving because their blood sugar wasn't completely stabilized. It was just lower than what they're normally using. So beyond that, you will be less likely to add fat. It will be harder for your body to add fat after a keto diet, and you probably won't crave those carbs in the first place as much as you might think you will. Of course, having them, you might overdo it a little bit if you go absolutely bananas on a holiday or something, or if you have, the wrong types of sugar in excess. But trust me, this thing is very manageable in that way. This argument hopefully was logical and gave you some insight into why keto is the opposite of crash diet and deserves much more attention for that purpose. Thanks for watching. My name is Anthony Romano. Peace.